to do.
I'm Larry Shapiro, Executive Vice Chancellor for Medical Affairs and Dean of the Washington University School of Medicine. And it is my very great pleasure to welcome graduates, faculty, staff, family, and friends to our commencement celebration for the class of 2012. Today is a day of great joy. It's a day to rejoice in dreams realized, hopes attained, goals achieved. For the graduates in the audience, today represents the culmination of a journey that began many years ago, and in the spirit of commencement, it marks the beginning of new adventures and new passages. Like most travelers, you recognize that your voyage could not have been possible without others preparing the route for you and aiding you on your way. Those others include parents, grandparents, siblings, spouses, partners, children, friends, and teachers. And all are gathered here with you today in physical presence or in spirit to extend their most heartfelt congratulations and their greatest good wishes for your future success and happiness. You're a class of very talented students. You have exceptional skill, compassion, and commitment. You've been given unique opportunities as students at Washington University, and we know that as you proceed in the healing profession of medicine, you'll make the wise use of your gifts for the betterment of your patients and of the world in which we live. All of our hopes for the future go with you. It's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. William A. Peck. Dr. Peck was selected by the class of 2012 to make the keynote address at this recognition ceremony. Dr. Peck is certainly no stranger to this audience or to this ceremony, which he presided over during the 14 years that he served as Executive Vice Chancellor for Medical Affairs and Dean of the Washington University School of Medicine. Bill Peck has had a major and enduring influence on the School of Medicine. Under his very able leadership, the school grew in impact and in excellence, rising to the very top tier in quality and international recognition. Bill recruited outstanding faculty and students, garnered resources, oversaw the transition and growth of our clinical enterprise, and initiated a number of important new research programs. Bill was destined for a career of greatness in medicine. The son of a physician, Bernard Peck, who kept an office in the family home, Bill's early years revolved around medicine and music. An accomplished pianist, he worked his way through college based on his musical skills. At the age of 7, Bill developed osteomyelitis, and frequent hospitalizations as well as these other early experiences clearly had a profound influence on his decision to study medicine. After graduation from Harvard College, he attended the University of Rochester School of Medicine, and then was a resident in internal medicine and a fellow in metabolism at Barnes Hospital, before a stint at the NIH and a return to the faculty at Rochester, where he quickly became a professor and chief of the Division of Endocrinology. During those years, Bill established himself as one of the foremost investigators of bone metabolism and is still one of the leading authorities on osteoporosis. In 1976, he returned to St. Louis as the Simon Professor of Medicine, Physician-in-Chief at Jewish Hospital, and co-chair of the Department of Medicine at Washington University. In 1989, he became Executive Vice Chancellor and Dean. And after leaving the deanship, Bill became the Ellen and Edith Wolf Distinguished Professor of Medicine and the founding director of the Washington University Center for Health Policy. In addition to service on many boards and advisory groups, Bill has held many important leadership positions in academic medicine, including a term as chairman of the Association of American Medical Colleges. He's a member of the Institute of Medicine, and to put it simply, Bill is quite simply one of the most important, influential, and respected figures in academic medicine of the past quarter century. He's been a great leader, a great physician, a renowned teacher, a visionary thought leader, and a treasured friend. Please welcome Dr. William Peck.
I think I should sit down after that introduction and call it a day. Well, first of all, let me say that Larry has iterated his welcome to you, and I would only repeat that welcome. It's great to see you all here, and tremendous congratulations to the wonderful class of 2012, distinguished class of 2012, and also to the parent. I see relieved faces and smiles out there. It's terrific to see. Your families many of them have sacrificed for this educational process, and we certainly thank you for that. And the support of your friends has been wonderful. Let me say also that I would like to congratulate the faculty and administration for providing what I think is the greatest environment for medical education in the world. I have to tell you that Larry has been very nice in his introduction, but he has done wonders since I stepped down. He's been Dean and Executive Vice Chancellor for Medical Affairs for 9 years, and he's doing a superb job. He's advanced the institution substantially during this period of time, and I have great respect for him as a person and as a friend. Now, I've been at this for a long time. Actually, I've been associated with medicine. Larry mentioned that my father was a physician for most of my 78 years. I know I look younger than that. You know, there are 3 phases of life. There are 3 phases of life. There's youth, there's middle age, and there's you look wonderful. I get a lot of you look wonderful, but I don't think it's true. One of the main experiences I had after growing up with a father who was a great primary care physician, they called them general practitioners in those days. Larry mentioned my osteomyelitis. I ended up at Children's Hospital in Boston at the age of 17 for 6 weeks during the summer. And during that time, I did very well there. I had a chance to meet many of the other patients and also some of the physicians and students that were hanging around. So one of the things that the Children's Hospital was noted for was rehabilitation for patients who were paralyzed by polio. I mean, significantly paralyzed. Many of them were in these tubes that we called iron lungs because they were paralyzed from the neck down. And there must have been 20 or 30 of them there, and I talked to them. I was amazed by their spirit. You know, young people really have a spirit that doesn't seem to be daunted by significant illness. I wish we could figure out that gene. And the other thing was that there was a heart surgeon who performed the first repair of a congenital heart defect. His name was Robert Gross at the Children's Hospital. So here we had this incurable disease with terrible, unpreventable and terrible consequences, and we had pioneering surgery, the yin and the yang of healthcare and medicine. Down the hall, unbeknownst to most people, was a laboratory that was exploring efforts to isolate the polio virus and get it to multiply outside of the body so that a vaccine could be created. You needed a lot of virus to create the vaccine. And the laboratory was in Children's Hospital. And it turned out that while I was there, they achieved success. The laboratory was headed by John Enders and his compatriots Robbins and Weller. And several years later, work began using that virus propagation method to develop a vaccine, and the Jonas Salk vaccine emerged. Jonathan Enders won the Nobel Prize in 1954 with his compatriots. So here we had the end stage of the disease, the prevention of the disease, and progress in surgical science. Just an amazing, and I swore that I was going to go into academic medicine after this experience. The next great thing that happened to me, in terms of deciding my career, was to become a resident. We used to call them interns. That's a synonym for servitude. I was a resident at Barnes Jewish Hospital, or Barnes Hospital then, and of course I was a fellow at Washington University. And I saw the same thing happening, amplified at Washington University as I saw at the Children's Hospital. Much larger institution, breakthrough science, great health care delivery, great care of the patients, and so forth. And I said, this is really where I want to end up. And I was fortunate to do that. Now, since I've been at this so long, I do understand the elation that the students feel and that you feel. I also understand the concerns and uncertainties, not only about the residency, but about the nature of healthcare in America. The residency, they'll do fine. They are terrific kids. They are well prepared to have a great positive impact on the future of healthcare and science.
Well, now you see the most poorly kept secret in America, the secret of the great success of the Washington University School of Medicine. Not our facilities and buildings and laboratories, it's our faculty. Faculty that were exemplified by the two recipients of the award today, and the faculty who are gathered on the stage and those who were with you here in spirit. So I'd like to ask the class of 2012 to express their appreciation to all the faculty who have contributed to their education. You guys were terrific this morning, too. No question who were the loudest people in the quadrangle. But share a few thoughts. On a day much like this, that for me was now some 41 years ago, I participated in my medical school commencement at Washington University. The world of medicine has changed a bit since those days. In 1971, CT, MRI, and PET scans didn't exist. Computers were nowhere to be found in a hospital except maybe in the billing department. Drugs derived from recombinant DNA methods and monoclonal antibodies were not available. The LDL receptor and its role in cholesterol metabolism hadn't been discovered, and no drugs to lower lipid levels were in use. Coronary artery bypass surgery was a new experimental technique, and balloon angioplasty was many years in the future. Oncogenes hadn't been discovered, DNA hadn't been sequenced, and the disorder that would become known as AIDS hadn't yet emerged. Today, we can sequence the entire genome of a patient in a matter of a few days, and at a level of effort and cost that makes it practical to contemplate doing it as a clinical test. We stand on the threshold of breathtaking developments in medicine. Just try to imagine what the next coming years might hold. So why do I discuss these matters other than to highlight my rapidly advancing age? It's to indicate that if our intent these past 4 years was to provide you with all of the facts and information that you would need to be effective practitioners of medicine for the next 3, 4, or 5 decades, then clearly we've already failed. Of course, that was never our goal, but rather our plan was to provide the foundation upon which future knowledge would be added incrementally and continuously. The greatest benefit that I received from my Washington University education was to learn to adapt to change. I developed the skill to acquire new information and to discard that which is no longer true. Many of you will be the ones to make the discoveries that will transform medicine. Others will be the ones to apply this information to improve the lives of future patients yet unborn. But we all need to be continuously engaged as students if we're to deliver on our first and primary responsibility to our patients, to be as fully knowledgeable and as professionally competent as we can be, and to know when we've exceeded our area of expertise and it's time to ask for assistance from our colleagues. So the first of 4 challenges which I will set before you is to manage the exponentially growing body of knowledge and information relevant to the practice of medicine and to stay current. My second challenge is to continue to balance this storehouse of knowledge with underlying and inevitable uncertainty. We've taught you the principles of evidence-based medicine and how to use the best information that's available to make decisions about patient care. However, our knowledge is both incomplete and imperfect. Carl Friedrich Gauss was an astronomer in Göttingen, Germany in the early 19th century. He was concerned with determining the location of stars and other celestial objects with precision. He realized that as telescopes improved, this could be done with ever greater reliability. However, the measurements were never entirely accurate and they lacked exact reproducibility. By making many measurements and applying statistical methods, which he developed, he's the individual for whom the Gaussian distribution is named, he could determine a close approximation of the truth. But the best that could be achieved was to say that the star under observation lied in an area of uncertainty, and that area could be calculated from the observed scatter of individual observation. A century later, Heisenberg and Schrödinger developed the principle of uncertainty in quantum mechanics, which is one of the greatest scientific ideas of the past century. The poet and philosopher Bliss Carman wrote, "What are facts but compromises? A fact merely marks the point where we've agreed to let investigation cease." There is no absolute certainty in medicine, and when hubris develops within us and we think that we're invincible, that's the time that we're most vulnerable to tragic mistakes. Atul Gawande wrote, "The core predicament of medicine, the thing that makes being a patient so wrenching, being a doctor so difficult, and being a part of a society that pays the bills they run up so vexing, is uncertainty. With all that we know nowadays about people and diseases and how to diagnose and treat them, it can be hard to see this, hard to grasp how deeply the uncertainty runs. As a doctor, you come to find, however, that the struggle in caring for people is more often with what you do not know than what you do. Medicine's ground state is uncertainty, and wisdom for both patients and doctors is defined by how one copes with it." The third challenge that I issue is to wrestle with your commitment as a physician to your patient, among the most ancient and sacred of social contracts, along with your duties as a member of our society, and the need to see that scarce medical resources are distributed equitably and fairly. We're approaching the limit of our nation's ability, or at least our willingness, to pay for any and all interventions, no matter what the probable outcome. At some point, that will require that we prioritize the relative needs of different individuals. Some will call this rationing, but I would submit that it's rationalizing the available capacity of the healthcare system. Pressures will be placed on you to take into account financial matters when dealing with end-of-life care, experimental procedures, novel therapeutics, and more. We're in an era of limits that I certainly never felt when I began my career, but the limits are real and we need to respond. However, we have to do so in a way that guards the integrity of our relationship with our patients and the trust that they have in us. The decisions must not involve considerations of personal financial gain or corporate profits. In the Declaration of Geneva, which you'll be shortly reciting, you will pledge that the health of my patient will be my first consideration. That must always be your watchword. The fourth and final challenge that I'll articulate is to be a champion for the improvement of our profession and for social justice. Despite having the most advanced healthcare technology in the world, our health outcomes are not good. We make far too many errors, we're wasteful of resources, many individuals lack access to adequate healthcare services, and disparities in health among various populations in this country are a national issue of the highest concern. These twin issues of stunning technological development and healthcare affordability and social justice will continue to confront you throughout your careers. But I have the greatest confidence that you'll meet and deal with these issues effectively. So keep in mind these four challenges that I extend to you. First, be lifelong learners and keep your skills and knowledge up to date. Second, recognize the inherent uncertainty of all that we think that we know. Challenge assumptions that are not supported by careful observations and facts. Third, acknowledge the tension that exists between the needs of society and the needs of your patient, but be an ardent advocate for your patient. And fourth, recognize the paradox that exists in this country and the contrast between the enormous resources committed to healthcare and the outcomes which we achieve. Be committed to eliminating medical errors, containing unnecessary costs, to achieving equitable access for all, and to eliminating health disparities. The coming years will be intellectually challenging and emotionally taxing. You'll be allowed the privilege and receive the trust of your patients as they permit you to share with them some of the most intimate and personal moments of their lives. You'll be inspired by the courage and the strength of the human spirit which they exhibit as they meet challenging circumstances. They may also exhibit the foibles and human weaknesses that may be revealed under great duress. You'll also come to know yourselves as never before in the crucible of clinical challenges. The physician occupies a position of unique respect in our society, and the role of healer in our culture confers a status of admiration and trust. You must never take that trust for granted, and of course never must abuse that trust that's placed in you. Your lives will be shaped by your patients, your colleagues, your teachers, and your families. You've demonstrated brilliance, creativity, and the capacity to put forth enormous effort and energy. You've shown a deep commitment to others, an ability to work collectively, and a passion for your chosen profession. I challenge you to make the most of your gifts. I ask that you continue to demand the very best of yourself, to insist on the excellence that characterizes our School of Medicine in all that you do and from all who work with you. Retain the sense of wonder and curiosity that brought you to medical school. Striving to understand the mysteries of life at all levels is one of the most thrilling of human endeavors. Hold on to that sense of idealism and purpose that propelled you through the past 4 years. Resist the forces that will try to make you complacent or cynical and attempt to extinguish the fire that burns within each of you today. Remember the feeling that you have right now as you sit together as a class for the last time. I wish you all the satisfaction and joy that comes from a life of service to others. Cherish each day that's given to you and make the most of it. And know that as you travel onward, your friends and teachers at the Washington University School of Medicine who have accompanied you on your journey thus far will continue to watch your progress with the utmost pride. Godspeed, fellow physicians.
And accept his diploma. The first group of graduates completed 6 years or more of medical and research education and are receiving both a Doctor of Medicine degree and a Doctor of Philosophy degree. Will the first row of graduates please rise and proceed to the stage? As I read your name, you'll cross the stage and Dr. John Spellman Chrissinger. Dr. Unia Alexandra Daderlot also could not be with us today. Dr. Daniel Robert Howard. Who? Dr. Tara Christine Jackson. Dr. Jason Toe Can. Dr. Elliot Adam Karen. Dr. Eric Juan Kim. Dr. Mukti Vinayak Kulkarni. Dr. Daniel Kaimeng Kwan. Dr. Christina Grace Kwong. Dr. Serena Sumin Lam. Dr. Andrew Yuwon Lee. Dr. David Michael Levine. Dr. Yingxing Zhang. And Dr. Jeff Guanbo Zhao. This concludes the 2012 commencement recognition ceremony for the Washington University School of Medicine. Following the recessional, you are cordially invited to join the graduates in celebrating this amazing day at a reception sponsored by the Medical Alumni Association in the atrium, located on the second level at the top of the escalators. Faculty and graduates, please rise for the recessional.
就新嘅。
但發苗光。會唔會光得滯啊？
叫佢行入嚟啊！行入嚟冇太陽好啲。睇得舒服。我大把時間。